Love is the most wonderful feeling a human can ever feel. When you love somebody and you know they love you back, there is nothing better in the world. This is what drives men to do whatever they do, to build stuff, to invent stuff, to sail across oceans, to get up to the top of the hierarchy so they can win the affection of the woman that they love. Men will carry a torch for years because of this deep feeling of love. And love is something that you can absolutely engineer in somebody else. But it requires that you understand what love is. Love is a collection of emotions, of instinctive triggers, of feelings, of conscious and unconscious thinking patterns, and how we interact with the world. In ancient hunter-gatherer days, love was necessary because one of the strange things or interesting things or pivotal things that happened to humans way back before we were humans was that our brains got really, really big really, really quickly. In about 1 million years, our brains tripled in size. Now, this was good for thinking, but it was terrible for childbirth because if we were born as nearly fully formed as other animals, we would lose the ability to walk. Our hips or women's hips would have to be super, super wide to make way for the big human brain. And that would mean we lost our ability to walk. So Mother Nature had a choice to make. Keep our ability to walk or be born fully formed. And she chose keeping our ability to walk, which means human babies are born way, way less than fully formed. We spend a huge portion of our lives in adolescence compared to all the other mammals, which means when a human baby is born, it is a massively resource-intensive endeavor. A woman with a little baby cannot survive on her own. She needs somebody else to go out every day for years to get enough food for the both of them. And in order for this to happen, there has to be this massive emotional glue holding them together. He has to want to do this. He has to feel good when he does this. She has to want to have him do that. She has to feel good when he wants to do this for her. And this is why we evolved this complex collection of love emotions. And according to most psychologists and anthropologists, love is at least a 3-phase process. First phase, second phase, third phase. And the first phase is when a young couple starts to notice each other. He notices her, she notices him, and critically, they notice that they're noticing each other. Now, he's got to be in the top 20% of dudes as far as status goes. He's got to have top hunting skills, top communication skills, top leadership skills. He's got top friendliness skills, top helping other people skills. And she notices them, and he or she notices him with these skills, and he notices her noticing him, which makes him notice her. But critically, while they're noticing each other, while they notice that they're noticing each other, that they're almost always separate. Because according to anthropologists, how humans lived back in the days of hunter-gatherers was that they were in a group, but the men would go out hunting, sometimes for days. The women would follow them. And eventually the women and the children would catch up. They'd eat whatever the men killed, and then they would go off again. So most of the time it was men ahead, women following, men ahead, women following. So they were never really together, which meant that while they noticed each other noticing each other, and they were thinking about each other, they were separate, and critically, there was massive scarcity of information. They couldn't contact each other. They could only think about each other. This is why psychologists believe that love, at least the initial stages, is largely self-hypnosis. The same thing happens today, but it's almost usually a one-way ticket, meaning you see somebody, you think about them, you build up this massive image of them in your mind, and this is what one-itis is. But ancient love is kind of like a mutual one-itis, where they're kind of dreaming about each other, and whenever they see each other, they notice that they've been thinking, and they can see that their expressions when they see each other is different than before, and it just makes this into like a self-fulfilling loop, a massive love, self-hypnotic, self-fulfilling loop. Now, while this is happening, the tribal elders and everybody else in the tribe is kind of vetting them, because nobody could get together back then unless it was approved by the tribe. Because the worst thing that could happen for any tribe of ancient humans, because food was so scarce, is to have a couple to get together, have some kids, and then have that relationship fall apart. That would just be disastrous. So they absolutely wanted to vet the two people to make sure they were good for each other, they would stay with each other, they would raise kids that would help the tribe get food later on in life. And so while they were noticing that they were noticing each other and having this self-hypnosis love feelings for each other, there was a lot of social proof and a lot of authority. And so their eventual union was validated by social proof and authority. Everybody in the tribe, all the elders of the tribe. And once the social proof and the authority kicked in and everybody decided that this would be a good union, that's when they essentially got married, or whatever they called it. And that's the first phase. Self-hypnosis, being apart, scarcity, social proof, authority, and validation. Then when they get together, they start having sex. And back then, you only had sex really with one person your entire life. Now, they say that humans are potentially polygamous, but most of the time we're monogamous. We're monogamous with the idea of polygamy if we can swing it. But that requires your status as a male is so far above the next level male that women would rather share you than have this guy to themselves. And this is not normally the case. So most of the time we were monogamous, which meant when the guy and the girl got together, they knew from experience, they knew from social proof that this was my only chance in sex. This other person is my only chance of ever having sex. And once they felt how wonderful sex felt, that kicked off phase 2 of love, that massive infatuation, that massive lust. This is where the kind of one-itis shifts from the land of imagination into the land of reality. And back then, the land of reality is much, much better, because having imaginations about somebody is not nearly as wonderful of a feeling as having sex with somebody, particularly somebody that is into you as much as you are into them. And that is this very short second phase of love, this kind of level 2. Then the baby comes, and this is when things really, really kick off. If you're a father yourself, or if you know men who have had kids, they say that once you see your kid, this changes everything. And back then, you knew that your wife, whom you loved absolutely, and your kid whom you loved, was absolutely desperate, and they needed you to be as productive as you possibly could. So this really exploded the ambition of the male. Now the male wanted to take over the world and give it to his wife and kid, and she very much wanted to help him take over the world so she could be provided for. So this became a kind of a dual subconscious idea where they would both support his ambition, because the more of a hunter, or the better of a hunter he became, the more he rose up the status hierarchy or maintained his high status, the more status she got by proxy, the better he felt as a provider, the better she felt as someone being provided for by a top level male, and the more likely, this is the critical part, the more likely this kid or these kids would grow up and be successful humans later on. So all of these emotions, all of these external triggers, all of these internal triggers created this deep, wonderful feeling of love, which was later followed by male ambition to sustain the love and the female desire to be taken care of by a super ambitious male. This created a scenario where babies had the greatest possible chance of surviving. Now, as you can probably see, modern love is much different than ancient love. Modern love has a lot of missing ingredients. For one, if you notice somebody and they're noticing you and you think you like them and they think you like you and you know they think they like you and they know you think they like you or whatever, you're texting all the time. There's zero scarcity. You don't think, when am I going to talk to them again? Because you can just send a text. There might be about 10 minutes or 20 minutes or 30 minutes of scarcity when you text them and you wonder where they're going to text you back. But this is nowhere near enough scarcity or time to build that base level, because back then they were gone maybe for days at a time. Imagine not knowing when you're going to see the person you like again, and they're surrounded by other dudes while you're gone in modern times. Back then, there was no other dudes around the girl. So it's very, very different today. It's not nearly as conducive as building this massive lower level but foundational level of love. But then when you start having sex today, it can create that magical feeling if you don't have a lot of experience. But a lot of people today have a lot of experience. So you're not going to necessarily associate the strong, wonderful feelings of sex, emotional intimacy, sexual intimacy with the other person. You might think in your mind that, well, this is this person, but I've also had sex with those other people, and there's this other girl I'd like to have sex with in the future. So it's not nearly as strong. And unfortunately for both genders, the more sexual partners you have, the less likely you'll associate the good feelings of sex and sexual intimacy with the person that you're with. It'll just be another fun thing that you're doing. And because of birth control, the baby never comes. And because in our modern economy, women absolutely do not need men. There's no explosion of ambition. You don't see the kid and think, I want to spend my life taking care of you, because she doesn't really need that. And so there's a lot of missing ingredients. There's a lot of missing ingredients that take away from the possibility of the deep feeling of love that was created way in the past. And there's a lot of missing ingredients that kind of misfire, so the male ambition never really takes off. And a lot of male ambition can also be hijacked through divorce. I mean, if you're a young couple and you see your wife and you see the baby and you haven't had a lot of experience before them and they haven't had a lot of experience before you, and you have this massive ambition and you spend 10 years building this ambition to take care of your wife and your kid, and suddenly she says, I want a divorce after 10 years, and now what do you do then? Your ambition has just been absolutely crushed. So there's all these modern ingredients that are different from the ancient ingredients, which means that modern love is not nearly as strong as ancient love used to be. Modern love is not even close to being as strong as ancient love used to be. The modern ambition that men feel when they see their kids is not nearly as strong as it used to be, because back then it was live or die, succeed or die. And so they absolutely needed him to have a massive successful ambition. Today, not so much. Now, like I said, you can engineer this feeling, because these are all internal feelings that are a result of external triggers. Now, it's not as simple as saying something for 10 minutes, then poof, she's in love with you or he's in love with you. But you can engineer this process. Now, some people might have some trouble with this, but somebody like you, with your experience and your understanding of human nature and your intuition and your unique way of seeing the world, this is going to be relatively easy. It's just a matter of understanding the process and adding things in the right level. It's like a complicated recipe. If you just dump everything in the pot at once, it's going to come out like crap. But if you add this and then wait 20 minutes and then add this and then make sure it's this temperature, make sure it's this taste, and then add this, then you can create a wonderful dish. Similarly, you can engineer love in anybody if you understand this process. This takes a combination of hypnotic language patterns, some hypnotic storytelling, a lot of linguistic presuppositions, some deliberately applied scarcity, some deliberately applied authority and social proof through linguistic presuppositions, and the patience to pace it out over time. And you can use your skills of love engineering to create short-term relationships, to create long-term relationships, or to enhance your existing relationship. But just be very, very careful. Because one of the worst things to have happen to you is to have somebody who's madly in love with you, who can't live without you, but you can't stand them. You get to know them. The more you get to know them, the more you realize you want nothing to do with this person, but they're like, I can't live without you. Please, please, please. That's a horrible situation to be in, particularly if they know where you work and they know where you live. The worst thing to have happen is to have somebody banging on your door at 3 o'clock in the morning who can't live without you, begging to see you. So be very, very careful before you use this love engineering process to make somebody fall in love with you. Make sure there's at least a minimum level of compatibility. A good idea would be to date them a few times just to make sure you're compatible, and then kick off this love engineering strategy and get them to fall madly in love with you. If you'd like to learn more, check out the links below. Otherwise, thanks for watching.